In 1979, two psychologists published a paper that changed how economists understood human decision-making. Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky called it prospect theory. And at the center of that theory was a finding that seems simple but has enormous implications for anyone who manages money. Losses hurt approximately twice as much as equivalent gains feel good. Losing $100 feels about as bad as gaining $200 feels good. The pain of loss is roughly double the pleasure of gain, even when the dollar amounts are identical. They called this loss aversion. And it is, in the research literature, one of the most replicated findings in behavioral economics. It also explains a huge number of common investing mistakes. Once you understand loss aversion, really understand it, not just know the phrase, you will recognize it everywhere in your own financial behavior. And recognizing it is the first step to not letting it control you. Subscribe if you want the psychology and the frameworks. Let's get into exactly what this costs investors. Let's start with how loss aversion shows up in portfolios. The most common pattern: investors hold losing positions too long and sell winning positions too early. This has a name: the disposition effect. It was documented systematically by Terence O'Dean in a 1998 study of 10,000 brokerage accounts. He found that investors were significantly more likely to sell a stock that had gone up than a stock that had gone down. Why? Because selling a winner locks in a gain that feels good. Selling a loser locks in a loss that feels psychologically painful. It makes the loss real. As long as you hold the position, you can tell yourself it might come back. You can avoid confronting the loss. So investors hold losers far longer than the fundamentals would justify, waiting for a recovery that sometimes comes and sometimes doesn't. The financial consequence is straightforward. You're holding your worst performing assets and selling your best performing ones. That is the opposite of what good portfolio management looks like. And the tax implications make it even worse. Selling winners creates taxable events while holding losers means you're not harvesting the tax loss you could be using. Loss aversion also drives panic selling. When markets crash and portfolios drop 30 or 40%, the pain of watching that loss is so acute that the psychological drive to stop the pain, to sell and make the number stop moving, can overwhelm rational analysis. People know intellectually that markets have recovered from every historical crash. But that knowledge doesn't make the pain of watching the portfolio drop feel any different. The emotional response to loss is neurological. It happens in the amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, before the rational cortex can process the situation. If you've ever panic sold during a down market and regretted it, share this video. Understanding why it happened is the first step to not doing it again. Loss aversion also shows up in how people evaluate risk. Consider this: which would you prefer? Option A, receive $50 guaranteed. Option B, flip a coin, heads you win $100, tails you win nothing. Mathematically, these are equivalent. Both have an expected value of $50. But the vast majority of people choose option A. They prefer certainty even when the expected value is identical, because the possibility of getting nothing feels like a potential loss. Now change the framing slightly. Which would you prefer? Option A, lose $50 guaranteed. Option B, flip a coin, heads you lose nothing, tails you lose $100. Again, mathematically equivalent. But now the vast majority choose option B, the coin flip. Why? Because losing $50 for certain feels worse than the possibility of losing $100 combined with the possibility of losing nothing. When facing losses, people become risk-seeking in an attempt to avoid the guaranteed loss. This asymmetry, risk-averse when facing gains, risk-seeking when facing losses, is the core of prospect theory. And it maps almost perfectly onto how investors behave. They sell winners too early to lock in gains, and they hold losers too long trying to avoid realizing a loss, sometimes taking on more risk by averaging down into failing positions. How do you counteract loss aversion? A few concrete strategies. First, reframe losses as costs. Holding a stock that has dropped 30% isn't preserving value, it's spending 30% of your investment on an outcome. If you wouldn't buy the same stock today at its current price, the only reason to hold it is loss aversion. The relevant question is always, given what I know now, is this the best use of this money? Not, can I recover what I've lost? Second, automate decisions wherever possible. Automated portfolio rebalancing, automatic contributions, systematic selling rules, all of these remove the emotional decision point. You can't panic sell what gets rebalanced automatically. You can't hold a loser too long if your system has a preset rule for reviewing positions. Third, track your actual behavior, not your intentions. Keep a record of what you bought, why, and what you expected. When you revisit positions, compare reality to your original thesis. If the thesis has changed, loss aversion is a reason to stay in the position. It's not a reason. Fourth, zoom out on your time horizon. A portfolio loss in a down market looks and feels different when you frame it as, my portfolio is down 20% this year, versus, my portfolio will be worth significantly more in 20 years than it is today. Both statements can be true simultaneously. Loss aversion focuses you on the immediate number. Wealth building requires you to focus on the long trajectory. Loss aversion is not a character flaw. It's a feature of human cognition that evolved for good reasons. In physical survival contexts, losses are asymmetrically dangerous. But in investment contexts, it consistently costs money. Knowing the mechanism doesn't make the feeling go away, but it can help you pause before acting on it. Like this video if Kahneman and Tversky's research landed for you. Subscribe, this is the kind of content I make every week. See you in the next one.